Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we've gathered a stack of material that is, well, it's profoundly unsettling
It really is.
because it completely blurs the line between what you'd think of as supernatural horror and something more like a clinical case study.
And that's the core of our mission today, right?
Yeah.
We're trying to look past the initial shock and really analyze the mechanisms of fear that these accounts share.
Yeah, what actually happens when the reality you count on, your home, your grief, even your own senses, is just violently invaded by something completely alien.
And across all these different narratives, you see these common threads keep popping up. Rapid isolation, this escalating dread, and consequences that are often, they're just irreversible.
So we're not just going to recite the events, we're going to dissect the anatomy of 5 very specific incursions. We'll look at the horrifying corruption of the home, of that intimate space.
And then the mystery of these entities that seem to both guard and terrorize.
And finally, the ultimate, often grotesque, disintegration of the human form itself. It's just striking how they all seem to target the most fundamental parts of being human.
I'd argue the common thread isn't even the monster itself,
Yeah.
no. It's more about the failure of boundaries, whether it's a physical wall or just psychological resilience. The horror always seems to start small.
With something mundane.
Exactly, before it just achieves critical mass.
Let's start right there then, with the complete collapse of the domestic sphere. This first account is just known as the eye mold. And it starts with a slow, creeping decay. A door frame that sticks for no reason, this lingering acidic smell of old mustard in the kitchen that just will not go away.
The environment is already setting the stage. It's making things feel irrational before the real horror even starts.
Yeah.
And that starts when the protagonist finds this strange, damp lump under a tablecloth. And the detail here is it's impossibly precise. A single, wet, blinking human eye embedded directly in the grain of the kitchen table, and the mind immediately tries to rationalize it. It has to be fungus or some weird wood growth or a stress hallucination.
But it blinks. The source says it actually adjusts to the shadow when he leans over it. And just the sheer desperation of trying to scrape it out with a spoon and nothing. It doesn't budge.
So he covers it up, tries to forget.
Yeah.
But the entity, it doesn't really care about denial. It spreads. And not like a fungus, but with this geometric efficiency.
2 eyes, then a dozen.
Then they're covering the backsplash, the counter tiles.
Yeah.
The kitchen is no longer a kitchen. It's become this retina-lined organ. And that's where the real isolation kicks in.
When he calls for help, that scene with the exterminator is one of the most chilling things I've ever read.
Oh, it's a total breakdown of authority.
He's standing in a room, literally wallpapered in these pulsating eyes. Some are weeping, this pale fluid. And the professional, the guy hired to fix reality, just asks.
See, exactly.
He's completely blind to it. So what does that suggest? Is the horror just localized to one person's perception?
It forces you to ask if these things even operate on our plane of reality. The exterminator is immune. The horror is proprietary. It belongs only to the victim.
And then he discovers the rule.
Yes, the one rule he can find. When he closes his own eyes, the pressure, the twitching, that oppressive feeling of being watched, it all vanishes.
Which leads to this desperate, irreversible solution. He decides he needs permanent darkness.
The account is brutal. It details this visceral process of using a spoon and some rusted scissors to perform a kind of self-surgery, to gouge out his own eyes and sever the optic cords.
It's an agonizing choice, isn't it? Blinding physical pain over constant, overwhelming visual terror.
The psychology there is just profound. He chose to destroy his most reliable sense sight just to survive. He wakes up in the hospital, he's blind, and he thinks he's won. He's found the darkness.
But then he feels it.
He feels the pressure return. And the mattress beneath him starts shifting, swelling upward. The eyes were never the thing itself. They were just the mechanism of enforcement. The presence was still there, thriving completely outside his perception.
So if that story was about the physical corruption of the home, this next one, it shifts to the corruption of our inner emotional world, the violation of grief itself.
This is the tragic story of Marissa and Paul. They're consumed by the loss of their daughter, Elsie, and they're sinking under this crushing debt.
And their lifeline is this Faustian bargain with a company called Graphco, some kind of experimental grafting process to boost their orchard yields.
And you can see how grief gets commodified here. Graphco offers this cold, technical solution to a fundamentally human problem. And the solution is, of course, monstrous.
The bud on Elsie's tree just swells. alarmingly fast.
Yeah.
And it morphs into, I mean, it's a precise, recognizable, age-appropriate sleeping form of Elsie.
The details are so specific. Curled legs, her facial features. The source even says it had a faint, warm pulse.
It's the ultimate corrupted hope, right? The mother, Marissa, becomes obsessed. She starts treating this fruit baby like a real child, wrapping it in Elsie's old muslin blanket.
But Paul, the father, he sees it for what it is. He recognizes the monstrousness of this unnatural life cycle.
And when he tries to end it, when he clips that first fruit from the branch, the source gives this devastating detail.
It rots instantly, just splits open to reveal not pulp or fruit, but budding teeth, musculature, and fibrous tissue under the skin.
It's confirmation. This isn't a miracle. It's a grotesque mimicry of life.
And from there, the psychological consequence is immediate. A Grafco assistant shows up, unannounced, to check on their asset.
And Marissa, trying to protect this impossible child, she drives a pruning tool into the base of the man's skull. The grief has now devolved into murder.
The end is just chaos. There's a storm, a fire. It's all symbolic of the total breakdown. The fruit just collapses into this wet, shapeless sludge, its jaw splitting open in a final horrifying moment.
And all that's left is a single seed.
And the father, Paul, finally takes the only real act of control he has left. He flushes that seed. He ends the cycle before it can start again.
The horror there is in that realization that sometimes the greatest act of kindness is preventing a rebirth.
Exactly.
That story is just, it's a powerful look at how existential violation can consume grief. But let's step outside now, because our sources also explore isolation out in the wild.
And the startling idea that maybe not all monsters are purely predatory. Which brings us to the narrative of the monster under the bed. Right? This one really subverts the classic trope. The setting is key. It's a crime-ridden neighborhood, but this one family's house is just mysteriously spared, time after time. Burglaries all around them, but they're never touched. And the young child, Mikey, keeps talking about something that pets her hair while she sleeps.
The fear peaks during an Amber Alert in the area. The narrator, checking on Mikey, is terrified, expecting to find an intruder, so he drops down, looks under the bed, and sees...
Not toys or dust bunnies.
No, a massive creature just wedged into a space it shouldn't be able to fit in, dual yellow eyes, disjointed teeth, and the creature looks strangely pleased to be seen.
And almost immediately, all hell breaks loose downstairs. The narrator grabs Mikey, runs to the attic. They hear crashes, screams, the sound of wood splintering.
And then this agonizing, animalistic noise. When the police finally arrive, the creature is gone. The house is a wreck.
But the key insight comes later. The police found the burglar's pistol. The threat was real. But the monster, it never followed them to the attic. It stayed behind to fight.
The monster wasn't haunting the child. It was fiercely guarding the home, a grotesque, territorial sentinel.
It really makes you wonder what determines which entity attacks and which one protects. It suggests they operate on some strange amoral necessity, not simple malice.
Moving on to another kind of encounter in isolation, we have this chilling piece of shifting folklore from an isolated coastal village, the story of the River Wives.
And this one starts with a very clear warning, given to Mara and her partner when they arrive.
The River Wives don't like being seen. And this very specific warning that dressing, quote, soft-hearted, being too gentle, too yielding, invites trouble.
And they first see them performing this ancient ritual, standing knee-deep in a freezing river, endlessly scrubbing fabric that turns the water red.
They look like women, but their arms are pale and bloated from the cold, and the deception starts when one of them feigns joint pain, asks the narrator for help twisting this huge piece of cloth. She's testing him.
And when he refuses, her demeanor flips instantly. She gets snappy and impatient, calls him selfish.
But Mara, she's determined not to be cowed by what she sees as just old-world sexism and strange local superstitions. She makes a fatal mistake.
She offers compassion where only fear was expected.
She goes back to the river with her artisanal, gentle soaps, a symbol of that soft-hearted approach they were warned against.
And the reaction is just violently disproportionate. The river wife's waterlogged limbs coil around her. The source describes the sound of washboards being dragged across Mara's back and arms.
The sound of her joints popping, her skin peeling away before she's dragged under and just consumed instantly.
It's an entity that exists to enforce the harshness of its environment. It punishes any sign of weakness or misplaced modernity, a total physical breakdown from a social miscalculation.
Our final narrative takes us into this realm of pure environmental and historical horror, the sealed WWII Crossline Tunnel.
A place just steeped in the history of a brutal firebombing in 1944. and a survey team discovers the site is far from empty.
The sensory details here are so crucial. The surveyor first sees a creature that seems to be wearing someone else's skin. It's this loose, grotesque mimicry with wet, red tissue and pulsing veins exposed underneath.
A deeply unsettling form of human camouflage. But then the radio picks up this strange anomaly. It's not a current broadcast. It's a tiny, static-ridden recording of a 1944 warning. Enemy aircraft sighted, brace for impact. And that sound, tied directly to the tunnel's trauma, sends the creature into a frenzy. It connects the entity directly to the history sealed in that place.
And despite its strengths, it has a very specific vulnerability. The narrator escapes and manages to slam this heavy, rusted chain-link gate shut on the entity.
Which, we realize, is wearing the skin of his partner, Dan.
And the reaction is definitive. When the creature's bare back, that exposed tissue, hits the cold metal of the gate and the first rays of morning light.
It screams, it blisters and splits, it recoils violently, showing this utter repulsion to a physical boundary and the sun.
So its existence requires darkness, a sealed environment. Despite its mimicry, light and hard boundaries are lethal to it. It's the ultimate proof of its non-human or maybe even anti-human nature.
So if we connect the dots across all 5 of these case files, the eyes, the fruit, the guard, the wives, and the tunnel, what are the recurring patterns?
Well, they highlight a few key points about survival, don't they? First, the victims are almost always isolated. Geographically, like the village or the tunnel.
Or emotionally, like Marissa's grief. Or physically, like the sealed apartment. Second, the horror always explodes a specific vulnerability. Desperation leads to Gravco. Misplaced compassion dooms Mara.
And the third point, which might be the most critical, is the role of perception and boundaries. In nearly every case, the horror either defies our senses, needing darkness to disappear, or it's explicitly sensitive to light and physical limits.
The tunnel creature is beaten by a gate and the sun. The eye mold only thrives when the victim opens his eyes. It forces you to abandon your most reliable tools: reason, sight, logic. Once you can't trust what you see, or you realize the basic physical rules of your home no longer apply, you're lost. So what does this all suggest for you, the listener? What's the core lesson here about surviving these realities that just fundamentally reject us?
It raises a really chilling question, I think. It links back to that ultimate choice of perception.
Right. If the entities in the apartment only disappeared when the protagonist closed his eyes, and the monster in the tunnel retreated when it was exposed to daylight, does this whole collection suggest something?
That maybe the only way to maintain your sanity against reality's most invasive horrors is to simply refuse to acknowledge them.
To just keep your eyes shut. To turn away and pretend the terrifying presence isn't there, hoping that maybe denial is a form of boundary in itself. And that's the unsettling choice these accounts leave us with.